Hello there everybody, Jordan back again with another video, and today is going to be a review of the 1996 film Scream, and this is directed by Wes Craven and stars Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Skeet Ulrich, Rose McGowan, and lots of other people. A year after the murder of her mother, a teen is terrorized by a mass killer who seems to have a liking of scary movies. Well guys, we do have Scream 7 on the horizon. I thought now would be a good time to go back and look at this franchise and do some retro reviews of these movies. I've always wanted to review these films on this channel anyway, so why not? Now, Scream is a staple in horror, isn't it, really? It's one of the most important horror movies of the 90s, and as a franchise itself, it's definitely one of the strongest. I don't think there's a bad movie in here. Even the worst movie is pretty good. So I'm very excited to go back and watch these films. It's been about 4 or 5 years now since I watched all of these. And Scream, the original, has always been a big favourite of mine. So especially going back to watch this one. But this is the one I have seen more times than any. So let's get into it. Let's just talk about the opening. There is no better place to start than this opening. And it is one of the most famous and best horror movie openings of all time. You got Drew Barrymore there, basically taking a phone call off this killer who we get to know throughout the movie with just a voice, really. And we soon realize that this movie is going to be a whodunit film going by the end of this opening scene. But Drew Barrymore was on all of the posters here, and I don't think people quite expected her to be killed off in the first 10 or 15 minutes, especially in such a brutal way. But it's just got a really creepy, sinister feel to it, where this guy on the phone is being very nice at first, but a little bit weird, and then he just starts to get even more sinister and depraved on the phone, to where Drew Barrymore is literally crying her eyes out. He's got her boyfriend ties up and starts to play a very dangerous game where she's got to answer some horror movie questions. And I really like that because it takes a meta approach to the horror movie genre, really. Very self-aware, and this is only a sprinkling at the start, but as the movie goes on, it becomes even more self-aware. More on that shortly. But it's a really good way to sort of trick her by asking who the killer of Friday the 13th was. And hardcore horror fans know that it is Mrs. Voorhees, but she screams Jason to save her boyfriend, and he is just gutted there. And next minute, she is chased around the house by this Ghostface killer who we hadn't seen before. This costume, now it's like iconic, isn't it? Just this very simple sort of white face with this black shawl going over it. Really awesome, you know, simple but effective there. And for her to be dragged across the floor after being stabbed and hung from a tree, for her mother and father to basically find her in the most horrible way a parent could imagine, just said, wow, this movie isn't messing about. And even though I had seen this movie
20 goddamn times,
I was locked in straight away. And the Ghostface voice is just perfect from Roger L. Jackson. Like I said, he's very nice at first and just gets a little bit more sinister as it goes on. But the voice just works. This guy made Ghostface a character, even though he's been played by many different him and hers across all of these movies. But Roger L. Jackson kind of makes the character his own just with the voice there. It's very fear-inducing what you're hearing on the phone. And I really like how we can just switch it up, you know, from being someone who sounds very nice to straight away just being an asshole, basically. Like later on in the movie, we've got Sydney sort of thinking that he's playing a game, and she's about to hang up, and he says, if you hang up, you'll die just like your mother. It's like, fucking, where did that come from? So yeah, Roger L. Jackson is awesome in this film. He doesn't appear in the movie himself, but he's one of the best cast members, I think, just for the voice alone.
do you want to die, Sydney? Your mother sure didn't.
And this film kind of brought slashers back, didn't it? The 80s was packed full of great slasher movies. Even the bad ones were very enjoyable. And the 90s started to just fizzle out a little bit there. We still got some good ones, of course, but just not as much as the 80s. And it felt like fans wanted something more in horror. And Scream done it brilliantly to bring it back there with the very meta approach, which I just mentioned. There's so many little cool nods to the horror genre here, where we have Sydney saying on the phone that the girl should be running out the front door instead of upstairs. It's insulting. And next minute, Ghostface bursts in the house and she's running up the stairs. Really love how Drew Barrymore is on the phone at the first part of the movie. And she says her favourite film is A Nightmare on Elm Street. And she says, yeah, the first one was good, but the rest suck. Really like how Wes Craven kind of just give himself a pat on the back there. Although part 3, Wes, come on. Part 3 is the best, in my opinion, anyway. But there's just so many little fun, little sort of Easter eggs for horror movies here. And when Randy goes on that big speech later on, explaining the rules of horror movies, I mean, you're just nodding along going, yeah, he's so right there. And it almost refreshed the rules for horror fans of, this genre. At the time there where they just thought, oh yeah, we can have our horror movies back now. It's kind of like Randy brought them back a little bit with that speech, but the movie did in general, of course. It was mainly down to Wes Craven. By the way, speaking of Wes Craven, I also love that little cameo there of him as Fred, the caretaker in the school. Always loved that moment. Now I just want to talk about Sidney Prescott, the final girl in this movie. I've got to be honest, guys. I never really used to like her as the final girl all that much. I thought she was fine, but I always thought she was a little bit overrated by the horror community. However, through more adult eyes now, and my knowledge of films growing as I get older, and especially doing this YouTube channel, more delving into films, looking at them, picking them apart, I really noticed the wraparound story working a lot more for her in this story with the past and her mother. And it's really, really good writing the way this works, because it really makes Sydney's character arc grow from the start of the movie to the end. Of course, she takes it to the killers, in the last act there, and calls Billy Loomis a little mummy's boy and everything. Love all that quote. She makes sure the killers are dead at the end. But it also grows her character arc by not just being that little shy girl and, taking it to the killers, but also being in denial of her mother and admitting that she may have got it wrong by testifying against Cotton Weary, because she did that just because she's seen someone leave with his coat on. Obviously, he has been framed by Billy and Stu, but she can sort of accept that she may have been in the wrong. And I really like it when characters are not perfect and they can sort of admit that they should have done things differently there, and that's what she does. And she sort of grows there with not just being a badass and taking it to the killers, but also saying that she may have been wrong in her past and she wants to correct things that way as well. So, and the fact that she realizes how her mother was and everything, a lot of people sort of said things about her mother and she's put it to the back of her mind, but she realizes that it might actually be true now, as harsh as that is. So I really like how Sydney sort of grows over this day-to-day period in this movie to a teenager to more like a woman, really, who takes responsibility. And I really like the setting of Woodsboro in this movie. It just feels like a town in chaos and also a media circus. I mean, you got Gale Weathers there, not leaving Sydney alone because she's been attacked, but there's just news vans constantly around the school. Detectives are basically interviewing everyone at the school, and there's a killing spree going on with the head teacher being murdered and everything. It just seems like this thing needs to be stopped, and everyone is in panic mode with the curfews and everything. I really love how chaotic it becomes. I gotta say, slasher movies can really have throwaway characters, guys, but the characters in this movie are solid. You like pretty much all of them. Well, I do anyway. And you've got Randy, who is definitely the most relatable character to me personally, and I think a lot of horror fans, just because he knows the rules of horror and he loves movies and he's got some movie knowledge and everything. I really love Randy.
There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
He's such a great character. Also, you've got Tatum, who is a solid friend to Sydney. She's someone you want by your side. She's always getting in the way of the reporters and everything, who won't leave Sydney alone. Just someone who really looks after her and is a very good friend to have by your side. You've got Gale Weathers, who may seem like a bitch at first, but by the end of the movie, she's awesome. Gail has always been my favourite character in these films, and she grows even more likeable as the movies go on. I just think Courtney Cox is a wonderful actress. I've always liked her, from Friends and everything, and she's a beautiful looking woman. I'm just going to admit it now. That does play a part, but I think she's an awesome character as well. And you got Dewey there, who is a little bit doofy, dare I say. Sometimes I can see the references from Scary Movie when watching this film, when seeing his character so much.
What did Mama tell you? When I wear this badge, you treat me like a man of the law.
But he's still an awesome character, and yeah, he's someone who really wants to put a stop to this damn thing. So the characters in this film are pretty much all awesome. But Billy and Stu, who are the actual killers of this movie, are great. These are two of the best Ghostface killers we've had in this franchise, guys. And I just love the reveal in this movie. This is one of the best things about Scream. It's genius from Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson, who wrote the movie. It's just perfect, because I don't think anyone in 1996 seen that there was going to be two killers. It felt like something new there. I know it's probably been done before, but it just felt like something brand new in this whodunit movie. Of course, the opening scene lets us know that it's going to be a whodunit movie, where Drew takes the Ghostface mask off, but the camera pans upwards. So that's really a great part of these Scream movies as well, just trying to guess who the killer is. But these two, man, it's so perfect, because what else is another genius move is that Billy has actually been arrested because he's got a phone on him, which I just thought was hilarious, by the way. Everyone's got a phone now, but in 1996, it was kind of like a special sort of trait you had if you had a phone. So looking back on that now, it's a little bit dated there, but it was a product of the time, obviously. But with Billy being in jail and Sidney getting a phone call off the killer, saying that, you've got the wrong guy and everything, that is a genius move, because not for 1 minute when I first watched this movie did I think Billy Loomis was still going to be the killer. So yeah, it's just so well written, this movie, guys. But this third act is just one of the best reveals in horror history, isn't it? I mean, Skeet and Matthew Lillard are totally hamming it up in these scenes. From the moment Billy Loomis turns around and says, we all go a little mad sometimes, quoting Norman Bates there off Psycho, I mean, they just turn into absolute menacing characters, don't they? Matthew Lillard as Stu is so funny in this movie. Still one of my best characters in the entire franchise, even though he's only appeared in this one film. Up to now. We'll see where Scream 7 goes. But he is so funny throughout this film. Just sort of the mannerisms he's doing and all the silly noises and the way he leans on people. But he's just having the time of his life in this final few scenes that he's in here. It's gonna be a screamer. Love it all.
Yeah, it would put her out of her misery, because let's face it, Sidney, your mother was no Sharon Stone.
And him and Billy interacting with each other, stabbing each other and everything, to show that, they were victims of this crime and they're gonna frame Sidney's dad. It's all just great to watch.
Yeah, I'm ready, baby! Alright! Get up!
So I really love how they're blaming the movies and everything. And one of my favourite horror movie quotes here is by Billy Loomis, where he turns and says, movies don't create psychos, movies make psychos more creative. I actually done a top 10 horror quotes, guys, which I'll leave down below, and that was actually in there. So fantastic, fantastic reveal. It's just so much fun. And by the way, guys, I really love the writing here for the motive for Sidney's mum, again, wrapping around that little backstory arc that we've got of Maureen Prescott, because she went with Billy's dad and Billy lost his mother. So that's the reason that he killed Maureen Prescott, and he's, getting revenge on Sidney and everything here because of that. I just think that's a really good motive to have. I know Stu's motive is a little bit less, it's not even really talked about, is it? I mean, he just says peer pressure, but I think that guy is just cookie anyway.
Now you're no longer a virgin.
Now, guys, even though I was thrown off by Billy not being the killer the first time and everything, because he was in jail and all that, when you rewatch this movie, and this is the beauty of rewatching Scream, even though you know the answers, you can see that Billy and Stu are actually obviously the killers due to a few certain scenes. They are just acting like psychopaths in a couple of moments here, especially the fountain scene where Stu is telling everyone how you gut someone because his girlfriend asked, and then he says, "I didn't kill anyone," and Billy's like, "Nobody said you did," staring at him as if to say, "Don't give it away." Also, the video store where they crowd around Randy and just kind of mildly threaten him. It's so obvious that they're the killers, guys. So that's the genius of this movie to me. And this movie is just so well paced. This never drags. It's always moving, always telling a story. The second half of the film is basically all in Stu's house, but that flies by. I mean, it's just such a well paced movie that is always entertaining. And it's one of them that you can just watch, have fun with, and just think after it, wow, what a great slasher. It's also got a great soundtrack here with that "School's Out" song when everyone leaves the school because, you know, classes have been cancelled, but also the Red Right Hand. Oh my God, I absolutely love that song. It just fits this movie so perfectly, especially when they're just walking through Woodsboro and it's playing. That scene goes together so well. It's kind of a nothing scene. They're just walking along, but that song comes on and instantly sort of elevates it, basically. So, great soundtrack here. You know, there's a few other songs in there, but yeah, really good choices. Now, guys, a couple of little negatives here with the movies. One of them being the main negative, really, is the kills in this film. I don't think they're the most creative. Apart, you know, the open scene is great, obviously, but most of them are just people being stabbed. That's about it, really. I mean, you do get Tatum going into that parking garage through the cap flap, and a lot of people have criticised this kill, but where else can she really go? Ghostface has got the other door blocked off. I don't know if I fully blame her for that bad character decision. I wouldn't even call it a bad character decision. She had to get out of there. But yeah, most of the kills here, guys, they're nothing to write home about. They're not going to be in anyone's top 10 horror movie kills of all time or anything. Also, who the fuck was in that toilet when Sidney Prescott hears them two girls talking about her? She goes and washes her hands, and Ghostface is in one of the cubicles. She just spoke to Billy outside and Stu just before it. So one of them must have got in that toilet very quickly. Yeah, I was scratching my head with that one. It just didn't make sense to me. And there are a few hand on the shoulder scares or people turning around and someone's there in their face with a big loud sound effect. The usual horror traits. Not too overloaded, but you do get them in here. And I know it's more because it's a 90s film, but you do even see this in films today, really. So kind of wish they weren't there. Also, I believe that Billy and Stu's plot to frame Sidney's dad would never have worked for one reason. Wouldn't the police just turn around and say, "Why have you got corn syrup all over you?" You know, the same stuff that they use for their pig's blood and carry, as Billy says. I mean, I'm sure these t-shirts they've got on and everything will be examined and stuff. Everything in a crime scene is inspected, so why would the police say to them, "Oh yeah, it's fine that you've got corn syrup on you, we're not going to check that"? You know, it's so obvious that they were looking to frame someone. I don't think that plot would have worked. However, guys, this movie still stands the test of time, despite Billy being the only person in the world with a phone. I think this is a wonderful slasher movie, and Wes Craven did brilliant things with it. I'm just going to go ahead and make this movie now. I'm going to give Scream an 8.5 out of 10. Very, very solid slasher movie, and still probably will be the best one after rewatching all these films, to be honest. Okay, guys, at the end of these reviews, I always like to leave a little fun fact. Now, a fun fact for Scream is that Matthew Lillard was actually cast by chance from casting director Lisa Beach, who seen him in a hallway in this building where they were doing castings for Scream, and he only went there to accompany his then girlfriend to another casting. She was, you know, going for a casting for something else, and she just seen him in the hallway and said, "Will you come audition for the part of Stu?" And what a wonderful casting choice that was, because he's one of the best characters in the entire franchise. Okay, guys, hope you all enjoyed this review. What do you think of Scream? Please do let me know in the comments down below. Absolutely love this movie, of course, and let me know what your thoughts on the franchise are, whatever. Thanks so much, guys. Look out for my other Scream reviews. You all take care, and I'll see you all in the next video.